Welcome to the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we explore the interesting lives of business leaders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and others who have a healthy dose of the entrepreneurial spirit. It is time to explore something cool. Now, here is your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. Thank you for pulling your chair up to the Cool Kids table, where we have twice a week shows here where we interview people who are doing interesting things. A lot of people who spent their life in corporate America and realized that maybe their ladder was against the wrong wall, or people who are doing that right now. And we try to find out sort of some tips and some tidbits and some ideas and inspiration for people who have that entrepreneurial spirit. And today is going to be another one of those interviews. But before we start, I have to thank the sponsor of this episode. Now, many of you offer physical products to your fans and your customers. And dealing with the physical stuff, storing it, shipping it, that can be a pain, and it steals your precious time. Well, my friends at Amplifier blend order fulfillment, screen printing, and on-demand production into a single self-service platform that you totally control. They can integrate with your e-commerce shop and help drive your giveaway campaigns. They are great for large internet powerhouse companies and entrepreneurs just starting out. On demand means no inventory risk. And as you know, as you grow, you can stock up on inventory, and Amplifier will handle all of that for you. So jump over to amplifier.com/coolthings and sign up today. So speaking of today's show is somebody who I met the other day. He's a young entrepreneur, and he started off as an engineer and was working in oil and gas for companies like Shell. He was out in the field, and one day he said, "Whoa, I don't want to be doing that anymore." Does that sound familiar to any of you? Well, Barton Scott made the leap, and he is doing some cool things as an entrepreneur. He's also doing some acting, and we're going to find out all about that. So Barton Scott, welcome to Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here, and yeah, I really enjoyed meeting you at Austin Startup Week. What a great event that is, right? I mean, I think it's probably one of the best out there in Austin every year.
Austin Startup Week is awesome, and there's just so much content that you can go be a part of. And so I enjoyed being on a panel, but it was just a great week of a lot of things that people could learn if they want to learn more about having businesses, being a startup, and growing.
For sure. Yeah, I was able to meet several other founders and have some great conversations. Really enjoyed ours as well. So
nice.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, you commuted in because you actually live in Houston. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you're in the wrong city, but
hey, used to be in Austin. Yeah, who knows what the future holds?
Who leaves Austin for Houston? I think we need to end this interview right now. He can't be doing anything that cool. No, seriously.
Well, here's the whole problem with corporate America, right? That was the guilty, the pull, right? So
well, and especially in oil and gas, Houston's the place to be. So, well, tell everybody about sort of how you transitioned and what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up with all the men in my family being entrepreneurs, at least in part, my father, my uncle, different things like that. So I've been around successful businesses my whole life, and I got to see some of the impact they were able to make, some of the flexibility they were able to have, and just the diversification of income, as well as, helping others was just, I think it's something that was always there, kind of in the back of my mind, maybe in the forefront of my mind. The first thing I kind of laugh about it now, but I think at 5, I negotiated with my dad to get paid to walk in my own sister's wedding. She was much, and it was just, I think it's just kind of that DNA of like enjoying the back and forth and enjoying the challenge. I think that's what all entrepreneurs have in common.
So what caused you then to make the leap? When was the time right? How did that transition come about?
Yeah, the time came as I figured it might when, just like a lot of people, you have your back kind of against the wall in terms of not loving what you're doing. And then something dawns on you. Maybe you lose someone close to you. Maybe you go on a trip and you get really inspired, or you read some book and it shifts you. And you just realize, wow, life isn't like we get one go at this. So what are we going to do with it? Like, are you going to be happy with the choices you're currently making, the path you're currently on? in 10 years? Or do you need to make a change now? Just even start small changes, so your trajectory, in 10 years, for example, is where you hope it to be, So that really came from me, working as an engineer, going through the downturn in oil and gas and going, I don't think I really want a job search anymore. I think this thing that I've been working on part-time, it has value. People love it. People see impact. You get reviews like, my daughter says it's the only thing that helps her sleep at night, things like that. If you get enough of those, you go, wait a minute, I feel like I have some sort of duty here. I think that's
a real common story. I mean, for me, I had always wanted to do my own thing, but I never knew what that was going to look like. And I had started, I'd written a couple books, I was speaking, and I thought, wow, could that be a career? But I was always kind of scared to take the leap. And then I got laid off in the middle of the recession 9.5 years ago. On April 1st, 2009, I found out that sometimes you don't, when you work for somebody else, you don't have any control. They decide if you're laid off because of outside economic forces. And, I always look back and say that was the worst time to get laid off because it was the bottom of the recession. There were no jobs. I was a corporate marketing guy. There were no jobs. And yet at the same time, it might have been the best thing that ever happened to me because I had to go out and sort of take control. And while it has been a struggle over the past 9 years, I never try to paint a brush like a lot of people do. I think there's a lot of people out there who believe, fake it till you make it. I've always kind of thought that was go live like a fraud until you're not. And so, I've always been really honest about the hardship of doing it, but it was sort of a similar type thing. It was a downturn that pushed me out, and I've never really looked back.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a good chance that everyone listening to the podcast, being able to talk with you today probably would be much less likely, I'm sure you would say, if it wasn't so dire, right? If you would have been able to just, get, say, 3 more offers in the following 3 weeks after that happened.
Yeah, no,
so, that's I'm certainly thankful, for your journey. So,
well, you're welcome. So here's the here's the question. So you had a little side thing that you've gone to make into your full-time venture. Tell us about that. What is your business?
Yeah, so it's a nanonutrition business. My background was in chemical engineering, and
so I'm going to stop you right there. What does a nanonutrition? We don't like to throw out words here that I don't understand. Other people probably know, but I never like words that I don't understand. So what is nanonutrition?
Absolutely, yeah. So the company's called Upgraded Formulas, and basically the focus is applying nanotechnology. Just cutting edge science and truly nanotechnology to minerals specifically. Vitamins get a lot of hype. Minerals really are what sustain you. If you had to do a prolonged, say, month plus fast with water and minerals, you could stay alive. With vitamins, it would be much tougher. So minerals really are the sustenance for life. So I figured if there's some area to innovate there that can be done, that can be brought to the forefront so that we're aware of it, that would be a huge improvement for anyone that touches it that it touches.
So I'd never thought about this before, but you always hear about vitamins and minerals, but at the same time, I can name the vitamins, right? We go, if I take vitamin C and vitamin B and we need sunshine, we get vitamin D. What are the minerals that we need and why aren't they as famous?
Yeah. So
do vitamins have better PR?
Yeah. And why is that? I really don't know, to be honest. But what I can tell you is that there are some really important minerals out there. People know things like magnesium. They know that that'll help you sleep. It's a raw material for melatonin. It'll help you recover faster. It helps make cellular energy as well. And that affects, going back to general chemistry, it affects your Krebs cycle. And why does all that matter? Well, to be able to focus, to have energy, to push through, to pursue goals, as all entrepreneurs have to do, you take on so much. If you can optimize your ability to manage stress, that's amazing. So we started there. That was our first product. But there's a lot of lesser known things that like vanadium. What does vanadium do?
Most people have never heard of vanadium,
so,
right?
Well, it turns out if you have someone in your family that has, for example, type 2 diabetes, if you have someone, or maybe you yourself struggle with snacking, with sugar cravings, a lot of us out there, right? Things like vanadium can really help. Now, I say it can really help. People like to say, what's the common phrase, right? In regard to nutrition, you are what you eat, except I propose a caveat to that. I think that really you are, Tom, what you absorb. So if you, and that's just when you stop and think about it, you go, well, yeah, of course. The problem is how do you take that knowledge and then apply it? So that's what we're doing. My goal is to give everyone a stronger foundation of health through our products. So, I mean, do we have all the products that we need right now to do that? No, but we're on the raise. So yeah, we're in that area of growth now where we've proven products. And
so how long ago did you make the leap to do this as your full-time thing?
1 year to the day almost, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. So you've raised some money, you're raising more money. You have a couple people who work with you. You're looking at expanding. What are some of the tough things that you face on a daily basis?
Wow. What a good question. The entrepreneurship today is painted with viewed with such, rosy red glasses. And, it's certainly, I think we talked about this, during prior to the call, but it's so true. It bears repeating that, something Mark Andreessen said was, there's really two, once you're really in the thick of things and you've really committed. So I've been running my business for 2.5 years now. It's been a year full time. Once you've really committed, you really get two primary emotions. And those are, fear and euphoria. And everyone likes to focus on, winning that contract. But
that's so funny. That's what I call every day, fear and euphoria. That's right. What day is it? Oh, today is fear and euphoria day. I don't care if it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Right. So it's true. You have to be a bit of an adrenaline junkie, but you have to have the courage to take a risk. And I think, something else I've thought about lately has been, I'll get your take on this too, the intersection of kind of luck and risk. And I was thinking, really luck is what happens to us when we've kind of been sitting around and something happens where we didn't take a deserved amount of risk, and yet we've received this outcome. And I think there's, you can never bet on things like that. You have to just put in the work. So that's just generally my mindset, or some realizations that I think maybe are helpful.
It's interesting that
they're kind of on the fence. So do it, but just don't expect it to be rosy.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you bring up luck, because that's one of those things that, several people who I interview always say that, there's a little piece of it, it is luck. And my brother said to me when I was a young man, God, you are so lucky. And my answer was, I set myself up for luck. So when I was 21 years old, I was on a television game show, and I was a 5-day returning champion on the $25,000 pyramid. And everybody said, oh, you're so lucky. Well, there was more than luck involved. Number one, I was good at the game. You had to have the skill. I had to beat other people. You had to have that word association ability. And I just had it in spades, which is why I had my friend Don told me, you got to try out for the show, because I'd watch it in the morning and I could beat the answers every time. So I don't know if that was luck. I just was really good with word association. And then the other part of it was I had to pick up the phone and call the number. And then I had to drive 2 hours to Los Angeles and go through a tryout. And then I had to be selected because the tryout, there was a test you had to take, and the top people got selected, a trivia quiz. And so at the end of the day, was I lucky that I won $20,000, a trip for two to Brazil, a sailboat, and a stereo? Yeah, but I set myself up for luck, and I took the risk, and I took the action that was necessary. And so I've always thought it's funny when someone says, oh, you're so lucky. So many times people set themselves up for luck because they put themselves in its path.
That's a great example. Yeah. I mean, all things being equal, you have to be prepared, but sometimes, you're blessed with just something that falls in your lap, so it's something I've thought about a lot lately, because I guess you start to have this compounding investment of just lots of hard work. And we're kind of at that point now with Upgraded where we're starting to see things start to move, and you go, wow, what caused that? how can we double down on that? And in some cases, it's an action you took 12 months ago or more. And now it's starting to gain traction. So,
it's like
just playing the long game, I think, is really, important.
Well, it's like this podcast. So when I came up with the idea just over 4 years ago, I'm part of a mastermind group with 3 other speakers. And the people who listen to the show know that I meet with them a couple times a year. And we had rented a house in Milwaukee. And when it was my turn to do like a 4-hour deep dive into my business, one of the things I told them I was going to do, and there was a lot of things 4 years ago I was doing to transition my speaking business to a higher level, is I was going to start this podcast. And my mastermind group basically told me not to do it, because the topic wasn't in line with the topic that I was speaking on at the time. It was a lot of work. They thought it was going to be a distraction. It was going to cost me some money, and I didn't have a lot of time or money. And so their recommendation was, and very sternly, not to start the podcast. And I went and did it anyway. And in the first 6 months, I had topped new and noteworthy. I had started getting 1,000+ downloads right away per episode. It got some media attention for the podcast. And now you fast forward 4 years, and I'm actually getting business. There are people who listen to the show who refer me to their employer when they have like a sales meeting or an all hands kickoff, or they belong to an association and the association is having an annual meeting. And it's not like the phone's ringing off the hook, but a couple times a year, I'm getting legit business from the listeners of this show. And as I met with my mastermind group the other day on a Skype call, I had just gotten a lead that day or the day before from somebody who was a listener of the show. And all 3 of them were like, yeah, that podcast's a stupid idea. So, I mean, it took a long time though, right? I'm 4 years and almost 400 episodes into Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. And, that's the whole thing when I talk to people about, just starting a podcast, is it's the long tail. I don't know where things are coming from. I mean, the person who found me just the other day, who referred me, I haven't got the business. They found me. I said, how'd you find my podcast? And they said, I was searching for a topic, and I forget which episode they found. And then they just kept listening, and they found out what I did. And they were like, kind of like this guy. They said that I'm in their car on their way to work every day, and they feel that we're friends. And, that never would have happened if I hadn't put in 4 years worth of work. So I think that's
absolutely,
there's definitely a theme to what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that reminds me of something, a piece of advice I gave lately. I had a friend of a friend that asked to come and meet with me. And so we sit down for coffee, and he's talking to me about what he's considering. And he said, do you think I should do it? And my thought for him was, I think that if you're not willing to devote at least a year to seeing if it works, in other words, don't even pick your head up for a year. Just go, all right, I believe in this enough that I'm going to give it, this small fraction of my life, but I'm really going to commit to it. And I'm going to push out other distractions. I think only then can you go, okay, now it's time to go, all right, where are we? And measure backwards, like from where I started. Don't measure forwards. That's how you'll just kind of demotivate yourself, but measure backwards and go, all right, yeah, I'm really proud of the progress, and the path forward now is so much more clear.
Yeah.
4 years, when you think about it, you've created a whole new career for yourself, a whole new life trajectory. So is 4 years that big of a price to pay? I don't think so, but we're used to such quick, feedback loops.
Well, in our society, that's right. Everybody wants everything now. They talk about the me generation. I think it's the now generation. Everybody wants everything, instantly. Yeah. And I think that's all ages. I don't think that's any one generation. But when you talk about going all in for a year, I have a young friend who I mentor, and a couple of years ago, he was, he wanted to be an actor. It was what his life goal was. And he was considering moving to Los Angeles and giving it a go. He was 28 years old. And, I said, go for a year. If you don't get on a path where it's going to work and you hate it, or you fail or whatever, at least you will have tried. Don't be 50 years old in 20 years and say, I never went for my dreams. I kind of did that, right? I did the right things as an employee and as a husband and as a father, but I didn't necessarily go all in chasing what I wanted. And I said, don't be 50 and say, oh, I never tried. I mean, I'm doing that now. I'm trying a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're certainly doing that now, you know, and that, you know, I just want to acknowledge you for doing that, because I think it's even harder. You have even more as Stephen Pressfield wrote a great book called The War of Art. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
it's a great book.
Yeah. So the resistance, right? Capital R resistance, you know, and it's something that everyone at every level in life and success in relationships face is resistance, right? So he talks about the muse visiting, but, you know, he's like, the difference between amateur and a pro is the pro sits down and expects, for example, he's a writer, so he talks about writing. The pro expects the muse to come when it comes, and he just knows that he'll be in his chair every day at 9 a.m. and he'll be there for 5 hours, or, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, I think that's interesting. But
well, and so the end of the story, it's really not the end of the story, just chapter one is, so he went to Los Angeles for a year and he took acting classes, and he had a job, he had a full-time job, but he met people and he kind of hated it. He didn't like the people he met. He didn't like the vibe of Los Angeles. He realized that Austin was where he really felt at home. And, you know, he didn't like what it took to kind of pursue that. And so he turned around, he moved back, you know, after 1 year, he moved back. Now, is that a failure? I don't think so. I actually think, you know,
I agree.
I actually think it's a thing where he can say, I know that wasn't the life I wanted to devote 5 to 7 years, you know, to only find that it didn't work. Because sometimes things you try aren't going to work. But by giving it a year, he realized it wasn't for him. Now, he's come back and he's still trying to figure out, what does he want to do? What's his way in the world? But I think I admire him more because he went for that year and said, yeah, this is not the right place. I thought it was the right place. But otherwise, he'd spend 30 years going, I wonder. And this way he knows. He went and did it. And I think that's something in our society, you know, that you brought up that I think is really important, is you're not going to succeed at everything. But if you don't go in and really try, you're never going to know. And you have to go in with that attitude that, you know, maybe it's not going to work, but at least I gave it the college try.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's so many, like there's a plus and a minus for everything you can do in life, right? Because, you know, time is finite. That's the beautiful game we get to play. But, you know, you go out and you do acting, and the first time you're on set, you're like, man, there's a lot of waiting around, especially if you're a little bit of type A, and you're like, I could have done so much work today, but I'm just sitting on set waiting for this, you know, this tiny little part, or maybe it's a big part, but you're just, the proportions are just, you know, crazy.
Well, I was going to transition to that because in your bio, it also says that you're an actor. So you've been doing some commercial acting in addition to this. So I've interviewed several actors on this show, and I actually realized that actors are entrepreneurs. You are a solopreneur if you're an actor, and the product is your acting. So how did you get into that, and where's the parallels?
Oh, the parallels are with pushing. Well, I'll come back to that. I'll just say what got me into it is just the fascination with improv. Actually, I really like improv comedy. I think it's the most fun I've probably ever had outside of building a business. Just building things and being in flow. You know, there's more and more flow research out there. And, you know, it's like what keeps snowboarders alive when they go off a 200-foot cliff. You know, just being in flow on stage is, and you know this because, you know, you've done stand-up comedy quite a bit now. And, you know, that's definitely an art form. It's really, really difficult. Improv is more of a fun, light version of that does have some really useful, you know, a lot of people that don't know it and haven't done it, haven't been trained in it. They don't understand that there's a lot of rules to it that actually that provide structure, right? That just really carry over to doing this. To, you know, what are we doing right now? There's a lot of improv here, and that's great. You know, there's a lot of value that can come out when you allow yourself to get comfortable in flow, whether that's dancing, speaking, snowboarding, you know, whatever it is, problem solving. So, you know, there's a lot of great problems for humankind that have been solved through flow. So if you can, I really believe by that means, if you can get used to getting into flow and getting out of flow, managing it really well, there's a lot of value there. So that's kind of where it started. the parallel to business is, whenever you can take an uncomfortable situation, like here's a bunch of new lines, learn it, deliver it, make it seem authentic, extrude it through who you are and bring something to it, and make it entertaining. If you can do all of that, then that really, it really pushes the boundaries of your sphere of comfort. And I mean, obviously that's where the growth is, right? Whenever you're leaning over the edge just enough that you're really pushing yourself, but not so much that you're falling over. So that's pretty valuable.
What advice do you have for somebody who either wants to start a business or pursue a dream, like being an actor, or going into improv or something like that? What advice do you have for them?
I think, there's a great thing kind of for those people out there that are really visual. So imagine 3 circles. This is some advice I gave recently when I was kind of mentoring someone. I said, think about it like this. There's 2 different ways you can look at it. I'll give you one way, but picture like 3 concentric circles, kind of like Russian dolls, all inside of each other. So in your outer layer, you have, let's say, what you enjoy doing, right? Okay. In that next inner layer, you have an area of strong skills and ability, right? And then within that, you have a core, a nugget of things that you'll actually enjoy, things where you're strong, and you have some either unique ability, which we all have, and it's just a matter of figuring that out and then doubling down on it, really studying, really honing that. And then, so within that last bit is what will people value enough to pay for? So if you can go, all right, so for me, I knew I wanted to, in the case of Upgraded, I knew I wanted to reduce suffering. I feel like that's why I'm here. And you can reduce suffering so many different ways. You can reduce suffering with humor. You can reduce suffering, the way doctors, can help people very one-on-one. I wanted to kind of expand that and go, okay, what if I created products that help people be a little bit healthier, or maybe a lot healthier, and therefore be a little bit happier? So that, and then go, okay, well, what's missing in the marketplace? What can I provide value? And then in my case, how can I leverage chemical engineering and nutrition and understanding of these, kind of a core group of skills, physics and chemistry and things like that, to produce something that people will value and yes, of course, pay for. So I think that's one way to look at it. There's so many, but that's one way to look at it.
So I've got a couple of more questions for you before I'm going to let you go. But first, I've got to thank the other sponsor of this episode. So this episode is brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly takes the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. They set you up with the right equipment, training, and guidance to ensure that you're going to sound amazing. Podfly does all the heavy lifting and the technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing really cool guests like Barton Scott. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, if you want to start a podcast, and I know that some of you do, jump over to podfly.net/coolthings and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of this show. So Barton, I call the show Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. What's the coolest thing you're doing with your business right now?
Right now, being on this podcast is pretty cool. I think Austin Startup Week last week was amazing, and just having the opportunity to be in certain rooms, have certain conversations, and be able to also give back and provide value to other entrepreneurs, and have conversations like, we've tried these analytics, and here's what we found, and just I think when you're really going for things in life, you meet other people that are going, that it becomes, your tribe it becomes what you would want it to be, I think. And that's really valuable. It's really cool. So, yeah. Awesome.
Hey, I ask everyone who comes on the show who they admire in the world of entrepreneurship, because I think great entrepreneurs, I think they're observers. So who is it out there that you look at and you say, wow, he or she, they're doing cool things?
Sure. I mean, in today's world, I would say Elon certainly is the person that I think, wow, is this guy an alien?
Number one answer on this program is always Elon.
Yeah, I mean, so if you read his book, you'll just not something he wrote, but something that was kind of observing him. It's really amazing to do what he's done with the mission that he has. But as far as the single entrepreneur that I've grown the most from over the last 10 years, Tim Ferriss is clearly been the guy that's shaped my thinking. So lots of thanks there to Tim.
From what I understand, he lives
Aubrey Marcus as well.
I understand Tim lives in Austin, Texas now.
Yeah, he does. I think he offices with a friend of mine. So, who knows?
Nice. Think you could get him to be on the show?
Possibly. Who knows? That'd be great. Right?
All right. I'll take it. I'd love to have him. Hey, the last question I ask everybody is, what do you do to give back to the greater good? Because I think entrepreneurs, in addition to making money and leaving our mark, I think that we really should contribute to better this planet. So I love to hear what people do in that aspect. Sure.
So I watched an interview with Kevin Rose years ago. He had a program called Foundation.kr where he interviewed Scott Harrison of Charity Water. Charity Water is a little bit different of a charity where they actually have really top tier investors that donate, and they cover all the fixed expenses of running the charity, all the salaries. So 100% of the charity that they receive goes straight to drilling water wells that have, once the well's drilled, they provide GPS locations to people that help get the well drilled. So because we have water-based products, and because I've been, donating to them for, 5-6 years now, I figured it was a great fit. So Upgraded does now, and will always give a percentage of profits back to Charity Water, because I really think they do some great work out there. When you have clean water, the network effects of that are just so massive. You get less disease. You don't have to have doctors there to cut tumors out because the tumors never grow. So many things are just possible just by having clean water. Mm-hmm. So
and I love the idea of tying a little bit of the money earned or the profits made of a company directly to giving, because it grows over time. I did a TEDx talk called "The Art of Giving Small."
I saw it. It was great. Yeah.
And that's sort of what we did. We just took a couple of percentage points every time I give a speech, and we donate it to research for kids born with craniofacial abnormalities. And if you watch the TED Talk, it's about 15 minutes long. If you watch it, I tell the story of my youngest daughter, and she was born with a condition where the bones in her skull were fused together. And it was a horrible thing to go through. And yet she's fine. She's 16 and she's beautiful. It's a happy ending to the story. But not everybody gets a happy ending to whatever it is they face in a similar situation. And my wife and I felt that because we were fortunate, we had to do something. And so, 12 or 13 years ago, maybe more, we started just piecing, and I was speaking on the side. So it was extra money. We just put a little bit away every time. And over time, it has grown to a substantial amount. And the trajectory over the next 20 years is it will continue to grow. And so I tell that story in a TEDx talk that I had the honor to go and do a few months ago. And it just actually posted recently. So if you're a listener of the show and you're still hanging on till the end of the episode, you can jump over to tomsinger.com/TEDx. And I have a link to it. Actually, I have it embedded right there. And then the added bonus is that kid, Kate, also she's 16. When she was 15, she actually did a TEDx talk. She did one before I did. I'm the speaker in the family. And she last year was chosen to speak at a TEDx youth event. And she doesn't talk about what she went through as a baby, because she doesn't have any memories of it, but she talks about her own philosophy of life at 15 years old, which is think, talk, do. And she talks about how she does things. She overthinks things. She talks about them to her friends and her parents, and then she tries them. And she fits right into my philosophy of try new things, because it's the only way you're going to discover what you want to do. And that TED Talk led to a lot of discussions about her desire for years to through hike the Appalachian Trail. And so last year I made a deal with her that when she graduates college, I'll go with her. And so that's about 5.5 or 6.5 years away, depending on if she graduates in 3.5 or 4 years. But so on tomsinger.com/TEDx, I have both my TEDx talk, but also her TEDx Youth Talk. So jump over there and check those out, and then send me a note. Let me know what you think.
Terrific. Hey, Tom, there's one other thought that I had just to touch back on what we said. If you're thinking about going for something out there business-wise, look at the cost of an MBA and go, well, all right, if that's going to cost at least $50K, can I just do some experiment, something I'm really passionate in? And like you said, go out, like going out to LA for a year. What will be the potential benefit 30 years from now? So,
yeah, no, I think that's right. And making that investment in yourself, whether it's going and getting an advanced degree or the School of Hard Knocks, making an investment in yourself always, I think, is the right way to go with that. So Barton, thank you for being a guest here on the show. If people are listening to this and they want to know more about you, more about your company, how do they find you?
Yeah. So I would say two things. Go over to upgradeformulas.com, drop in your email to get some discounts, and then, email me, Bart at Upgrade Formulas, if you'd like to know more about this current raise.
Barton Scott of Upgrade Formulas, we appreciate you being a guest here on Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. I say it every show. If it wasn't for the audience, we wouldn't have a show. So keep listening and tell your friends. If you like the show, jump over to iTunes or wherever you listen and leave a review. It always just makes me so happy when there's a new review on iTunes. And in addition to that, if you want to know more about me, you can find everything you'd ever want to know at tomsinger.com. That's THOMSINGER.com. And we're going to be back in a couple of days with an interview with somebody just as cool as Barton. But in the meantime, I'm going to challenge you to do two things. Go out there and try something new. And while you're doing it, have a great day.
Thank you for being part of the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast. Without your participation and listening to these conversations, there is no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter at tomsinger.